Welcome to Smarticus Tells History. All right, enough with the echo and fanfare. You're here for history, right? And not that boring crap you learned in high school. This stuff's actually interesting. Like things you've never heard about the Civil War, Cleopatra, automobiles, Monopoly, the Black Plague, and more. Fascinating stories, interesting topics, and some downright weird facts from the past. It's a new twist on some stories you may know, and an interesting look at some things you may have never heard. So, grab a beer, kick back, and enjoy. Here's your host, Smarticus.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Smarticus Tells History. I am your host, Smarticus, accompanied by my co-host, Phoenix.
Hello.
Today, we're going to talk about something that not only sounds funny, but is also really impressive in its deception. Phoenix, do you like bounty castles?
You bet I do.
All right, then you'll probably get a kick out of the inflatable tanks that the British used during World War II.
Oh, yes. The dummy tanks, or as the British Armed Forces called them, spoofs. But let's talk about food.
Yeah, we got food to go here first. So we were already joking about this. It's our food because we already did a British food item. It was a breakfast item, but this time we decided to do a dessert. And
wow, it's like welding my mouth shut.
Yeah, we chose to do spotted dick. So
yes, and the jokes we have made the whole time about it, they are endless.
We did. We made several jokes about it because it's funny.
Oh my gosh. I can really taste the lemon zest in mine.
Can you? I haven't even tried it yet. Let me take a bite out of it.
I don't know if it's supposed to taste like this or not because this is my first time making it, but also I had to use gluten-free flour. But I also looked at a gluten-free version of spotted dick, and it was pretty much the same thing. That aside, it's very dense.
It's not as fluffy as I thought it would be. So despite its rather unfortunate name, spotted dick is a tasty and subtly sweet steamed British dessert.
Mm-hmm.
Your whole family can enjoy spotted dick.
Spotted dick, sir? What? Spotted dick. Can you believe this guy? I'm trying to get something to use. Ask me if I got the clap.
The name comes from the ingredients. Traditionally, dried currants. There's no dick in this, just to be clear.
Oh, spotted dick. Oh, no, I think I'll pass. I'm not really a dessert man.
Dried currants, which create the characteristic spots, and an old English name for pudding, puddick, or puddick probably. Of course, in the U.S., pudding typically refers to a thick custard-like sweet dessert, but in the UK, puddings are boiled or steamed desserts made with flour. The latter is what to expect when preparing spotted dick.
Oh my god.
Oh man.
I am not mature enough for this conversation.
Even while we were talking, I said, like, I saw it and I was like, I'm a child. I think we probably should go ahead and just do this one because
I know
hilarious.
we could have done almost anything for this whole situation.
We really could have. Yeah.
But we had to do spotted dick to go with our spoofs.
Yep. I mean, yeah. I don't know. We could have done chips or French fries for us, I guess, or whatever. That would have been.
It's
boring.
actually Belgian, by the way.
Oh, okay. See that wouldn't have been right. So just goes to show how much I know. But yeah, so we did spotted dick. It's really easy to make for the most part if you've got
a big pot, right? If you got a big pot to have the steam bath basically for your container to make the spotted dick, it's a much easier situation, but
yeah, you had to put a little pot instead of a big pot, or a little bowl, or
a mold.
I actually went out and bought a mold this morning, actually, to make this, and I just used a bunt mold for the cake. Just a regular upside down cake mold, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And
I had a metal mixing bowl.
Yeah, so I don't have any of that, so it's all my bowls are plastic, and they would have melted.
Yeah, that wasn't bad.
Although, well, my mixing bowls, I mean, like I could use a regular bowl, I guess, and a regular, cereal bowl or whatever, and put it in there. It probably would have been fine. But
yeah, the recipe did say if it was acceptable for it to be heated, it'd be fine.
yeah. But yeah, so I went ahead and I bought a 4-inch bundt cake pan. And I bought a 10-inch one too, actually, but the 4-inch one worked just fine for this recipe. But it's really simple. You probably already have most of the stuff there at home. Unless
you're like me and you don't cook with vegetable shortening.
Right. If you do a lot of baking, you probably already have it. The shortening and whatnot, or whatever. But it called for I didn't even use butter.
Either.
I just sprayed the cake pan. But it says a tablespoon of butter for greasing the pan. Salt or unsalted is totally fine. 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour. I'm sure you can use pretty much whatever flour you want. 2.5 teaspoons baking powder. Well, like you used.
Yeah, I used King Arthur's gluten-free all-purpose flour.
Yeah, I just used Great Value, Walmart brand all-purpose flour. So 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 cup, plus 2 tablespoons of the vegetable shortening or suet. So the recipe called for vegetable shortening, so that's what I used. Crisco vegetable shortening.
Ditto.
3 tablespoons of brown sugar, lightly packed. It did not say light or dark. I used light. Did you use?
I think I used light as well.
Yeah, I had both. I bought light. I bought light yesterday, so I went ahead and I just used it. But I did have dark brown sugar also. 1 cup of currants or raisins. Zest of 1 lemon. So I only had like the tiniest amount of zest came off of my lemon. I was very disappointed. And I had to like scrape it off the side of the grater to get it to come off. On the inside where it wasn't going to cut me. And I did no cuts this time. I was extra careful when I was using it. So I had very little to actually put in there. But I put it in there. And then 2/3 cup of a whole milk. 2/3 cup whole milk. And then I did not do this part. I totally forgot about it even after we talked about it. What was it, last night? This is usually served with a custard, I guess, like regular, American pudding, I guess we call it. You guys, I guess you guys' pudding is stuff like this. But a kind of custard. And it has ingredients to make your own little custard type. It's optional. This is 1.5 cup heavy cream, 6 egg yolks, 2 tablespoons granulated sugar, and a pinch of salt.
Yep. You have to warm that up slowly, otherwise you curdle the eggs. I did not do the custard either because custard to me is not worth it to make because you're using just the yolks. And then the rest of the white, you're just supposed to, I guess, save or use in something else, but I don't want to.
Uh-huh.
I want the yolk and the rest of the white to. It's just not worth it to me. It's like losing half of my delicious ingredient. No, thank you.
Yeah. So I told you the other day, while we were looking at this, I was just going to go get me a snack pack of vanilla pudding or chocolate pudding to go with it. And then I totally forgot to do that too. So I failed on the second part of this completely, but
he wasn't prepared.
Yeah, it even says it's optional. So,
yep.
But this is a very British cuisine
dessert. It's a dessert.
And if you're interested, apparently there are 453 calories per serving.
I don't think you're gonna care.
Yeah. I just happened to scroll down some more and I read that that's what it said. So,
gotcha.
It has all of it. It has 55 grams of carbs. Whatever. You guys probably don't care. I mean, I don't, and I'm eating it anyways. And I'm actually trying to lose some weight. So, but for this, I'll make exceptions. All right. So now that we've talked about
our spotted dick,
now we get to go talk about inflatable toys.
Military grade
inflatable toys. So World War II is a time of great innovation and ingenuity in spite of nations around the globe trying to gain an edge on the battlefield. In 1940, after the fall of France, Britain was left standing alone against the might of Nazi Germany. The British military faced an enormous challenge to protect their island nation from the looming threat of invasion. The British forces were outnumbered and outgunned, and they knew that they needed to come up with a creative solution to fend off the enemy.
So the Brits got clever. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, better known as the Ghost Army, gathered artists, career military officers, and audio experts in one special unit dedicated to deception. The first mobile multimedia tactical deception unit in U.S. Army history, according to the National World War II Museum in New Orleans. The Ghost Army developed a simple enough idea to deceive the enemy and make them believe that there were more troops and equipment on the ground than there actually was.
Led by Colonel Harry L. Reeder, the Ghost Army comprised of 82 Army officers and 1,023 recruits. These recruits were art students from the Industrial Camouflage Program. Who knew there was even such a thing? And the Pratt Institute in New York. There was also fashion designer Bill Blass, photographer Art Kane, and painter Ellsworth Kelly.
The Ghost Army faced their first daunting task. They had to create a product that was lightweight, durable, and realistic. They experimented with various materials, including rubber, canvas, and plastic. What they ended up settling on was a wooden, sometimes metal skeleton overlaid with inflatable tubes covered in rubberized canvas, colored to look roughly like a real tank from a distance. They were designed to be foldable and thus easily portable. Eventually, they were placed over jeeps for easier and faster arrangement.
Wow, that's pretty clever.
Right? If you ever get the chance to go and look at the pictures from, I think it was the World War II Museum in New Orleans, look at the pictures that they have online. They're really cool because like they get up close and then they show you from a distance what it looks like. It's wild.
Huh. There's a game called Ace Combat.
Okay.
The one that I'm thinking of is Ace Combat 7, and they had this in there.
Did they really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. The signal company concocted fake radio traffic that mimicked the Morse code sending style called FIST that was specifically to Army units. Larry DeCures, a curator at the World War II Museum, is quoted as saying, "To the trained ear, that telegraphic fist is almost like a fingerprint." In addition to this, the audio engineers pre-recorded military training and construction sound, which was labeled sonic deception. These recordings were played on speakers close enough to German troops so that they were convinced that entire units occupied locations that were actually undefended.
The first spoofs were used in 1942 during the North African Campaign. The British military deployed 2,000 of the inflatable tanks in the region to see how well their dummy tanks could deceive the enemy. Their biggest hope was that the Nazis would believe that there were more Allied troops and equipment on the ground than there actually were. The tactic worked. The German forces were confused and overwhelmed by the sheer volume of equipment, and they were forced to retreat.
The success of the inflatable tanks in North Africa led to further use in other theaters of war, including the D-Day invasion of Normandy, called Operation Fortitude. The British and American forces deployed a large number of spoofs in the weeks leading up to the invasion, in an effort to deceive the Germans in two ways. The first being the size of the units deployed, while the second was to hide and downplay the importance of the actual invasion location.
The Ghost Army went to Pas-de-Calais, France, well in the line of sight of the German forces, while the actual forces were set to invade Normandy. This was a small part of the whole deception because at that point in the war, the Nazis weren't able to fly reconnaissance planes over England. Dummy landing craft was also stationed in ports of eastern and southeastern England where the Germans could see. Of course, Operation Fortitude was mostly carried on the backs of double agents and false radio traffic.
The British military continued to use inflatable tanks and planes throughout the war, refining and improving the designs over time. One of the most successful uses of this tactic was during the Battle of Arnhem in 1944. The British military deployed a number of inflatable tanks and other equipment to deceive the Germans about the location and strength of their troops. Again, the Germans were caught off guard. However, the success was short-lived as the Germans soon realized that the tanks were not real and adjusted their strategy accordingly.
Operation Viersen was one of the most successful the Ghost Army had during the war. From March 18th to the 25th in 1945, 600 spoofs were deployed, with even more soldiers and engineers in fake uniforms to impersonate actual units. They had the special recordings to fool the Germans into thinking construction was going on by the 30th and the 79th Divisions, who were preparing to cross the Rhine River. And it worked. The Nazis moved the bulk of their forces to the other side of the Rhine and shelled an army that didn't exist.
By creating the illusion of a larger army, the Allied forces were able to confuse and deceive the enemy again and again, helping to achieve strategic objectives and save lives. After the war and outside of their military uses, which has not been left behind in history, newer inflatable tanks and planes also have made an impact on popular culture. They've been used in a number of films and television shows, becoming an iconic symbol of ingenuity and resourcefulness.
So in conclusion, the British military got clever and managed to bring artists and engineers together to help during World War II, for the pure intention of deception. While they had their limitations, these big inflatable vehicles played many important roles in saving lives while applying every magician's secret weapon, misdirection.
We hope you've enjoyed learning about this fascinating aspect of history. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Smarticus Tells History. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. We'll be back with more stories from the past. Until then, keep exploring.
Thanks for listening to Smarticus Tells History. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate and review and make sure to subscribe. And be sure to follow the show at facebook.com/Smarticus Tells History. Or just click the link in the show description. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.